today. We are having an event here today for homelessness in Minnesota. So we're going to start out with a presentation of a few facts about homelessness in Minnesota. About 10,000 people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in 2023. 7 out of 10 homeless people are Black or Native American people of color. 2 out of 3 homeless can be found in the Twin Cities metro area. And 4 out of 10 homeless are under the age of 24. Homelessness in St. Cloud, there are approximately 450 to 500 people who are homeless in St. Cloud, according to Facebook. I just did a quick Google search and it came up with a reference from Facebook specifically. So, and another little nuance, a new term for homelessness is unhoused. The idea that you are unhoused versus homeless. So we're going to start out kind of talking a little bit about homelessness and what that means. For example, they are people who are unhoused, are prone to being outdoors, perhaps doing a lot of walking, and so they are more likely to succumb to exposure, and that is lack of protection from the elements. So they're more likely to get things like hypothermia or heat stroke, heat illness. They might become dehydrated, and there's another slide on that in a minute, but we've got hypothermia or heat stroke. Also contact with chemicals, gas, or radiation if they are out in an urban area, which a lot of homeless people are, as we already saw in the statistics. A lot of our homeless are down in the Twin Cities, down in that urban hub. So they might have more likeliness of having a lot of that carbon dioxide from cars and just all sorts of different chemicals. And if they are sitting on the city streets, you know, who knows what else they could be exposed to aside from the weather. So also lack of needed resources like clothing, shelter, and water. I actually was down there. I was helping people find housing, and so I worked with an agency, and I was just walking by, and about a block or 2 away from the agency, I did see someone kind of, I'm presuming they're homeless. I know there was a bridge that was kind of like the place to hang out because it was shaded, and so that was where, you know, a lot of people would congregate during the day. You would see just mounds of garbage. I think someone pulled like a sofa in there. So it was just this one bridge where all the homeless people would kind of hang out. But I did see someone that was on their own just a few blocks from the agency who was just huddled like this, had a jacket over their body, just trying to stay out of the sun, trying to find that shade, because it is hot. It is hot. It is just really uncomfortable when you don't have that safe place, that place where you can go, that place where you can take a break, where you can just be comfortable. Being comfortable is such a big factor, and you know, there's no guarantee like where can you go during the day. You know, you can kind of settle into these routines where you can say, okay, well, this opens and this is available to the public. No one's going to yell at me if I go to like the public library, which is where we are presenting today. But also, there are other places as well that you can plan on going, like college campuses. It's normal for people to be out kind of like lounging in communal spaces, just different places that is like where they don't have to face stigma, local parks. So anywhere you can feel normal, feel safe, find shade. If you can't find like a comfortable chairs are, I think, taken for granted a lot of times. But these, unfortunately, the ones that we have in here today are not necessarily comfortable, arguably, but they do have a backrest, which might be more than some people might have. So just a comfortable chair, just anywhere they can go where they can just relax and not have to worry during the day about their own safety. So exposure is a big concern. Temperatures. This is just a little experiment I did this past summer. I was out living out of a tent in my parents' backyard, and so I just did a little temperature experiment because it was new for me. I've gone camping. I've been camping in my tent, and that's what the tent is here in the middle of our congregation area. It was, I spent about a month in a tent last summer, kind of learning about, survivalism and kind of minimalism as well, which goes hand in hand with being unhoused or being homeless. So, but this year, I did have a tent in my parents' backyard, and so I was unhoused, and I just did a little temperature experiment, and so it was about, my phone said it was 88 degrees where I was. My temp here says it was 90 degrees air temperature, and of course direct sunlight, it does feel hot as well, and where I was, the breeze was kind of blocked too, just because we have the fence in the house and a hedge and trees, but it was 90 degrees where I was. The patio where I had my tent was 120 degrees. So this kind of had me thinking, if you are going to be out in an urban area, if you are out at a business or begging or sitting on the cement sidewalks somewhere downtown, looking for money or just trying to relax and take a minute to sit down and just be, it can be 120 degrees in the sun if it's 90 degrees outside. So that's really, really hot, which is why we do have snacks here today. A big thing is stay hydrated. You are so at risk of those heat illnesses, of becoming dehydrated, and we want to make sure that everyone is safe. So we do have water here, and we've also got popcorn in the back too. That's nice. I'm poor food because it's not that expensive, and it's easy to make a lot, and so you feel full because you've eaten like a whole bowl, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like a cup of corn, and then it's popped, and so we do have popcorn. It's a nice way to feel like you're eating, but it's not that much food at the end of the day. So, but anyway, it can be 120 degrees out there, and in a tent, if you think, oh, they've got their little tent colonies, that's fine, whatever, but actually it was 107 degrees in the tent, and I found that it was consistently about 15 degrees hotter in the tent than it was outside, and so it's so easy to just, that's also completely unsafe. You can cook yourself, being in the tent all day during the heat of the day. So hydration is so important. You want to make sure that you are safe, and that's a very, very, very important quality of life thing. So that's just a little experiment that I did. Bugs can be a concern. They are very annoying. They can also carry diseases. You get Lyme's, you could get, we don't really have malaria up here, but West Nile, just, different things kind of have their periods, ebbs and flows of being relevant in different areas, but, they are still a concern, and they're just a nuisance in general. If you are being constantly attacked by mosquitoes or by ants, some ants do bite, and then I ran my experiment, and I was in the backyard, and I was constantly just wiping ants off of my body, and I would wake up in my bed, and then I would just be like, "There's an ant on my arm." Just wake up, hello bugs, and this is in a backyard. Let alone, last year the month camping in the tent. Then I also did some time car camping as well. But it's just bugs and it's constant, and the mosquitoes can be horrendous. If you've ever been in Minnesota at the state parks during the mosquito zones, it is just, it's when they are making babies and when they are feeding, it is just terrible. So it's so bad. So you really want to be careful when you're out, because like if you are homeless, you don't have a lot of money, are you really going to spend money on bug spray? It's, per canister, it's, what is it, $7-8. If you'd rather eat that day, you have to kind of give a little, and so it just doesn't seem like it's worth it necessarily sometimes. So bugs are a concern. Hygiene, also a big one. And when you are just like hanging out by yourself, it's not the biggest deal. If you smell bad, or it's not so bad. It's kind of dehumanizing after a while. Especially if you're like, well, it's been a few weeks now and I haven't washed my hair. I probably should do that. I don't have a job and no one's holding me accountable, but I just feel disgusting. It can be a thing, and it just happens. It's not a big deal. I have found throughout my different experiences of the car camping, the camping, and the living in my parents' backyard, that it's not so bad. Like, especially in the summer, everybody's hot, everybody's sweating, but you want to find that shade, and you want to be able to have that respite, that comfortable time. But soap is nice to have. It is a luxury, and even just bar soap. It's actually, when I was car camping, I stopped at like a truck stop, and it was really, really great because it was a ritzy car stop. It was, the Flying J, and you could rent showers, you could pay to do laundry, they had massage chairs if you're willing to spend some on that. They had the restaurant there, I think it was like a Perkins, so breakfast foods, as well as your usual American fare. That was at a different one. I think the one that, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if the one I went to had a restaurant. There was another Flying J that had, I think, just like a Cinnabon. So, but the one that I stopped at, I can't remember, but they have, like delis with like, pizza and things like that. So they're very ritzy because truckers are on the road all the time, and so they kind of have a similar lifestyle sometimes as those who are unhoused. So if you are down in the cities, you might be more lucky in finding like those rest stops where you can take a break, or the truck stops like the Flying J. I stopped at one in Oklahoma. So they're all over the United States, where you can just rent a shower, but it's normal for them to have like the soap buttons in the shower, so they provide soap for you, but it's just all the same soap. And I found that just using like a bar of soap is good enough for your body, your face, and your hair. So it's actually really not so bad to just have the one bar of soap, and that's also relatively inexpensive as well. So even one bar of soap, it'll last for forever. So it's not a bad investment, not a bad donation. If you do have donations for our unhoused population here in St. Cloud, you can go ahead and leave them on this table here in front. That would be much appreciated, of course. But soap, so nice to have, because it is dehumanizing to feel gross, to have that lack of hygiene, and especially if you need, this is a good point, especially if you need to be out, if you need to be professional. I was working at the same time last summer when I was doing the car camping and when I was out in the tent. So I was living out of the tent with stuff in the car, and then I would drive into town, and then I would go to work, and then I would drive back out to the state parks. State parks are more inexpensive, and there's actually a slide too than like private campsites, which makes them a great asset as well if you are looking for a place to stay that's inexpensive. So, but yeah, if you need to feel professional, if you need to get clean and be amongst people, it's kind of a big deal. You want to be able to smell nice. You don't want to feel kind of a little like a grease monster of gross. So there's actually a table over on the side. I gave a presentation last week actually, and I was living in my parents' backyard, and I walked here, and it's about 6 miles, and I had to do a quick change, and so I just quick ninja'd into a dress. I had my dress in my pocket, so I was my professional in a pocket. And so we've actually got a table over there with a whole body deodorant just so you smell nice, and a rag essentially to wipe down, get the sweat off. You just go to the public restroom, quick change, wipe down, and you're good to go. And that is pretty normative if you don't have a place to live. If you are staying even at the state parks, they might have shower houses. You might have to stop at like a program center, quick use the restroom. You might be using a water bottle. They generally have spigots, and that's again on a slide later on. But there are ways that you can make yourself clean, but you have to be mindful about it and you have to plan for it. Like one time I needed to be clean for a meeting, and I did not have clean laundry. And when you're out, again, it's not a big deal if you do smell bad, and if you have worn these pants 3 times, 4 times, and this, this outfit, 4 or 5 times, and so it's okay when you're by yourself, but then you need to be professional and you need clothes. So I did end up having to do I had to do a quick turnaround, run to Walmart, grab a quick $10 dress off the rack, change in the bathroom, and run to a meeting because I did not have clean clothes. I did not have time to do laundry, and I actually did do my laundry by hand when I was camping at the state parks. Someone did actually tell me at one point that I could not actually park where I was parked because I was I did have my park pass, but I was at the boat ramp because that's where the sun was, and I wanted my clothes to get dry. I wanted them to dry on the line, and they said this was I think it was actually a different time, but they said, ma'am, you can't sit and relax here. If you have a campsite, you need to be at your campsite. And that was okay. But I did manage to sneak in doing the laundry and drying the laundry where there was sun to dry the laundry at the state park. So that was pretty nice that I snuck that one in before they officially told me that I couldn't be there for that long, just hanging out. So otherwise, yes, it is nice. That's why we have the professional in a pocket table, because you just never know. And when you're going to have a meeting, if you have to walk everywhere, you're going to be a hot mess in this weather, no matter where. With this humidity too, you can be walking for 5 minutes. You can be walking from a car to the building, and you're sweating. So it's just nice to be able to have that option available to do the quick change if you need to for any scenario. So let's see. Many in the Twin Cities can be found napping at a library with packs slung across their chest. The public library is a refuge on a hot or a cold day. I did actually go to one of the big libraries down in the Twin Cities, and I just found a seat, and I walked around a little bit, and there were so many people who were just sitting, they had loungers that I think were actually designed for the homeless because they kind of reclined, they were comfortable, they were kind of made out of like a pleather leather type that had that bend so you could kind of recline and relax a little bit. I think they actually did have the homeless population in mind, which I think is actually very nice. You know, I haven't napped at the library, but I have napped on a college campus, and I was a college student, and so that, you know, that's semi-normative, I guess. But for the adult population, if you need to just rest and take a nap, there is a social stigma there. Obviously, you can kind of nap in the grass, find a shady spot, but a lot of places might not have that shady spot available. And so the library is actually a great place where you can just relax a little bit. And I don't know what the policy is at this library. I've not really seen too many people napping at this library, just in the Twin Cities. It was a lot of people, but they had their jackets on. They would just sit like this. They'd lay back, and then they had their backpack on their chest, and they folded their arms over their chest, and you would just see them napping. A lot of them had hoods so they could kind of hide their face and just be relaxed. So it is a nice place. It is a beautiful place. It's also a great place to get that reprieve from the heat, from the cold, from just the noise of being out. And also it's a great place for internet, for printing documents, and for reading books and educating yourself. So the library in general is a beautiful, beautiful thing for people who are unhoused, as well as for the community in general. Another note, if you are trying to stay cool on those hot days, and if you can't get to the library, or you can't find shade, wetting your clothes will cool them down. So that should help you a little bit. I know sometimes wearing wet clothes can make you feel uncomfortable, but if it is that level of hot, I think that extra moisture is going to be glorious and not a detriment at all. So that's a good one if you are trying to cool down. Just water on your head, on your shirts. It's a great way because you want to keep your body temperature, your core, cool, and that's a big thing. That's where the heat illnesses come into play. You want to take care of yourself. You want to stay safe. So this one, wet cloth and a breeze in your area can also serve as a sort of AC. I actually read about this in a book about biomimicry, and I don't remember what they were referencing, but they said that if you have wet cloth and fresh air moving through, the currents of air moving through the wet cloth, it naturally cools the air down. And I think that's probably part of the chemical reaction or like whatever process, but I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'd have to pick up the book again, but I think I got the book from a library. but it's meant to cool the air, and it's refreshing. And I actually forgot about it, and then I was at one of my apartments when I was living down in the Twin Cities, and I had my laundry drying on the balcony, and the breeze, it was a hot day. I didn't turn the AC on because I'm not a big fan of AC. I don't like recycled air. I don't like that so much. So I had the balcony door open. I had my clothes out on the balcony, and all of a sudden the breeze came in, and it was so refreshing, and it was because I had my wet laundry on the line. So if you have like a sheet and you can wet it down and hang it by you, that's going to cool you off. That's going to be a nice refresher if you don't want to get your clothes wet, or various other options too, of course, but it is a nice kind of natural way to try and stay cool. So just kind of a cute little hack for staying cool. Shelters in St. Cloud. This is a list. I just went to Google, and you are more than welcome to do that as well. This is the library, and so you can log onto a computer here. Just go to any browser, type in, shelters in the area, and this is what I came up with. Salvation Army, St. Cloud. We also have Catholic Charities housing. Place of Hope Ministries, 180 Degrees, St. Cloud Youth Shelter, and Marines Alliance, Rise St. Cloud. So a bunch here. Of course, I myself am not 100% familiar with the shelters in this area, and I do apologize about that. I did a lot of work with homeless folks down in the Twin Cities, down in Minneapolis primarily, so I'm more used to the shelters down there. So I will apologize. This is just straight from the internet browser, and if I am mistaken on some of these, let me know. These are shelters in the Twin Cities. So People Serving People, Union Gospel, Our Savior's Housing, Simpson Housing Services Shelter. I did work with someone who had been staying with Simpson Housing, Catholic Charities. I did work with people who were staying with Catholic Charities, Caring Hands, Home Free Shelter, United Way, 211. I know you can just call the 211 and it'll give you information. I don't know if they have specific shelters or if they'll just direct you to shelters. But Stepping Stone, Emergency Housing, Home Street, House of Charity provides showers. So just look it up on the internet. We have so many nonprofit organizations that it's amazing what help you can find when you need it. So, and the Twin Cities is built for that. They have had this, concern for a very long time. So it's, they are the hub of Minnesota. So they do have a lot of resources down here, and a lot of them can be kind of closer together as well, versus up here, it might be less of a need. Obviously, like 450 to 500 people are homeless in St. Cloud, versus, like 10,000 homeless in one night in 2023. So we might not have quite as many resources up here, but if there's something that you want to see, you feel is necessary, let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. So this is a little blurb on living out of the car, just because I did live out of the car last summer, just as kind of an experiment. So you can live out of a car, but it does have its own concerns. Some of them might be parking. Parking is a big one. Staying cool, obviously, trying to stay safe, because if you want to stay cool, you want to have the windows open, but if you have the windows open, you get the mosquitoes, you get weirdos, you get whatever comes in through the windows. So it has its own concerns. So not just, I know the unhoused aren't the weirdos, there are other weirdos out there. So but parking, you could try and park with friends and family. You could maybe, see if you could bunk on their sofa, if they have a spare bedroom, what have you. But you could also park at some Walmarts. There was like a movie about it, and they've got apps, so you can see where you can park for free. But Walmart has been known to allow it. Some websites do say just communicate with the managers and they'll be able to help you out. Just clear it with them first, otherwise they might try to talk to you. They might get mad, especially if you disrupt the customers, so you want to be polite and be a non-entity while you're staying there. Some specifically have signs that say you cannot sleep here, you cannot stay overnight here. So rest stops in Minnesota do have a 4-hour time limit. So that is something to bear in mind. You can sleep at rest stops. I don't know if they would actually hold you accountable for that. If you did want to spend the night there, you could sleep at rest stops. That is an option. It's a nice option, just to find a dark corner. They have restrooms. They have those places, vending machines for coffee, for snacks, for beverages in general. So they are built to accommodate. They also might have playgrounds or walking trails. So it can be pretty ritzy if you stay at a rest stop, but technically they do have that 4-hour time limit. So there's actually also an app. This is new to me, an app for legal free camping. X Off-Road is for dispersed camping. So it sounded like it was for just letting you know where you can park your car and be out. So, on the trails, I think there was motorized trails where you can just like pull off and sleep for the night. And so that sounded perfect when I was doing the car camping, when I was out, just finding a place where you can legally park, where you have permission to park and sleep, and you don't have to pay anything, you don't have to worry. And a lot of it is, it's dispersed camping, so it's out, natural. You can just, hang out and be in nature during the day, and that's so relaxing and so nice. So I was excited about this. I haven't looked into it further because I found this after my experience last summer, but it's so nice. State parks have camping. They actually are $20 to $26 per night. You can get rustic campsites where you walk to them. That's going to be about $20 per night. Versus they also have like the ones with electricity, and those are about $26 per night. So they have a lot of different amenities there. You can check it out if there's one that's near you. Here in St. Cloud, I think we've got Sibley is probably one of the closest, or Lake Maria is one of the closest, and they're not that close. I'd say they're like 45 minutes away. Sibley is pretty small, but there are actually two that are just west of Sibley. They're super rustic, so I don't know if they're going to have any camping available there. But Lake Maria does have camping where you can bring your tent. I don't know if they do have places for hookups, like your RV hookups, your trailer hookups. So you could have electricity, which is really nice to have. I know I was desperate for electric one time. I was camping and I had the campsite, I had the car, but I ended up plugging in my phone in the restroom because there was an electric outlet there, and the program center was closed, and it was just awkward, and so I just ended up just having my phone in the restroom. But that was, I wanted to finish my book. At that specific time I wanted to finish my book, and they do actually have another shout out to libraries. They do have apps where you can get free books, like Libby is a great app where you can download them. There's Audible where you can get free books as well, but you do have to pay for the account for Audible. But it's nice, and that's a great way to educate yourself. It's a great way to keep busy and to get that catharsis of living someone else's life that perhaps isn't quite as complicated as yours at this particular time, or is more complicated than yours is if they've got like dragons to slay and stuff like that. So books are amazing. So, but the Libby app is great, and all you need is a library card if you want free books. But anyway, I was desperate to hook my phone up because I wanted to finish my book. I had probably 10 pages left, and I had actually had it plugged in my car. This is a funny story. I had it plugged in my car, and I had 10 pages left, but I had already used my car to charge my phone, and I had to call AAA
because I needed to jump because I goofed up the battery and it didn't want to start, the car didn't want to start anymore, because I was trying to use it to charge my phone. And so you want to be careful of that, because cars do have those plugins. You can charge your phone, and a lot of it is better when you drive versus when you are parked, because then it can strain the battery. I think if you have it longitudinally on for lights or to charge any sort of electric equipment, your computer, hotspots, you can bring that stuff on the go. Like I was living in a state park, and again, like the $26 a night, a private site is gonna cost you probably like $60 to $70 per night, if not more. So the state parks are actually a great amenity for that. But and that's like $20 for an entire month is like $700, which is really not bad in way of rent. Depending on where you're at, Twin Cities can get to like over $1,000 per month for a basic amenities. Same for up in Duluth. You can be lucky and find something here and there that's like 700, 800. But they might be really crap, really bad, like tiny kitchen, antiquated kitchenware and things like that. But rent can be exorbitant, and so $700 per month really is it's nice. It's nice, and it's not subsidized housing. You can find subsidized housing where they do accommodate what you need. So you could pay just $7 if that's what you're able to pay, but there are waiting lists, and that'll be another slide. But yeah, state parks are a great option if you do have that ability to transport yourself there, get there, and park. And they do have places if you want to have a tent. This tent was very affordable. It was like $20 at Menards. So if you are able to save some of your money for that and kind of plan in advance, there are some affordable options. But it can be tough to balance those finances, and even to make $20 for a tent or things like that. An Uber to a state park, that would probably be pretty expensive. So, but they have Charleston's program centers with running water, toilet sinks. They generally also have water spigots intermittently. So generally you just need to pay the entrance fee, and there is an annual pass that costs $35, so that would waive the entrance fee. And generally the entrance fee is like $5, and I don't know how that works for 5 to 7, I think is what it is, for a day pass at a state park, and then it's $35 for an entire year, which is an amazing deal if you are going to be living out of a state park. So pretty cool though. Good option if you do want to live out of your car, because rent sucks. Let's see. Individuals can apply for subsidized housing in Section 8. And that we've kind of talked about subsidized housing. They will charge you what you can pay. So if you get more money, rent will be higher. But it all depends on what you can afford, what you have as income, and what you can give out. So this is just basic. You can apply for subsidized housing and Section 8. Section 8 is a little bit trickier because it allows you to kind of move almost anywhere, whereas subsidized housing is a lot of like the public housing that are like housing that is specifically for those who are lower income. And so they do look like nice facilities. They might be a little rundown, antiquated in some ways, but they try to keep them nice, obviously, as nice as they are able to with funding from the state. So you do have the subsidized housing. They might have called them projects, back in the day. Now they're not all in one area. They are kind of interspersed in a bunch of different communities, so it's not just this is where all the public housing people are. So you don't have the project where it's just all of the poor people. That's not a healthy environment. That's not a healthy community plan to integrate and boost people back up and get them back on their feet. So we do have that. Section 8 is tougher because it is illustrious and beautiful. Everyone wants it because it allows you to live in places outside of just the traditional subsidized housing. But there are applications online in your area. This I think is something that people don't know. You can apply for that stuff on your own. You do not need, I worked in the industry, so I was in charge of helping people complete the applications, and a lot of them, like, it was kind of insulting their intelligence, like, okay, well, I'm gonna ask you these questions, and then I'm gonna, so it's like, you do it, and then I'll do it, and then the machine does it, versus just you doing it. You doing it yourself will save you so much time, and it'll save you embarrassment. It's all online, a lot of it. Some places don't even want paper applications anymore. It's all online, so it's private, just you can do it here at the library, you can do it anywhere. It's so nice to just knock out the applications and get it done. So very cool. You can do it on your own, a lot of it. You can find people to help you, and we will help you if there are those nuances. Like if you have felonies, that's okay. They anticipate that. They know that you might have a criminal record, and so that's not abnormal, which is a weird thing to say. And maybe this is just in the Twin Cities too. It's a little more normal for people to have that track record already there. But you're not alone, and they're not gonna judge you for it. People work with people who have track records all the time. So don't worry about it. Don't lie about it, please. I know I actually filled out an application for someone, and this was when I was new, and I didn't realize, I didn't look them up on the websites. You can actually do a search online with your name to find out your criminal record without doing a full background check. I hadn't done that when I was new and helping people find housing. I just trusted the person, and they said, no, I'm fine, I don't have any sort of record. And then we got to the meeting, they got accepted for public housing, we went to their official meeting, then it's just there's a meeting, and then there's another, they'll reach out once they have the housing, but they meet with you first. And we went to that meeting, and they called the individual out on lying. They're like, so, but now your application says that you don't have a criminal record. And then the individual came clean and said, no, I've got a criminal record. This is what's happened. This is my parole officer. This is, and this was all, I was just shocked because I helped them fill out the application and the paperwork. And they're like, no, I don't have a criminal record, nothing. And so I think they were trying to save face, they were trying to save our relationship, and just, they just wanted it to be normal. But you do need to report that stuff. They will call you out on it. The person still did get housing, thank goodness, and so it was fine. I think they're used to that too, but if you are honest, that saves a lot of time and effort. So try to be honest about that stuff, but there are options for you. Waiting lists can be pretty long for subsidized housing. I know down in the Twin Cities there was one area that was 7 or 8 years for subsidized housing. And then a lot of the waiting lists were kind of popping open in other places. So if you do have flexibility, alternatives might be more feasible than subsidized housing. There is that waiting period. It might take a month or two. It really depends on where you're at. Down in the Twin Cities, you might think it was really, really backed up in the Minneapolis area, but they actually said that a lot of things were opening up, so they're able to process individual applications really, really fast. whereas families do take a little bit longer to place because obviously there are more factors to consider and more families and perhaps fewer family houses available. But they do have those options. They were able to process it, but it still takes a couple months to figure out, you know, the application and to get the meeting, and then like another month or so to say we have an opening, are you available to move in, and another month. So that's, you know, it's X number of months. And so if you can stay with friends, stay with family, if you can figure something else out, try it and find a job, or if you can find other things that are going to get you through, it might be more prudent and more, you know, it might save you time and stress for sure. But it is a good idea just to look and see what all of your options are. Like I said, one of the waiting lists for subsidized housing was like 7 or 8 years. Others were like, no, we can place you in a month. So just keep applying. Definitely apply in more than one area if you can, just because you don't know, and it's better to find a place if you have that flexibility and just have that as a foundational element in your life when things are, you know, in flux. So if you feel like you cannot work because you have committed a felony, search jobs available to those in your situation via any web browser. Like I said, I have worked with people with a criminal record, and they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to find a job, so they wouldn't be able to pay for groceries, and, you know, of course, and there are the waivers and the packages that come with different disabilities, and you can apply for disability, Social Security online. We do have professionals that are available to help, and I can actually help you apply for that stuff today if you would like it. But they can help you pay for things like that. The SNAP benefits, there's a great application that is, I think it's just mnbenefits.com or .org or .gov maybe, but you just type in your information. It's all of the applications in one place. So you can say, I'm looking for food benefits, and then you get that application in, and then they can help you. They'll process your application and get you your card, and so you'll be able to get your groceries. And they can explain all the caveats there of you can buy these cold foods, you can't buy hot foods, you know, things like that. So there are those nuances there to ensure, you know, that all the state's parameters are being met. But there is and I wish I had it on the slide, and I do apologize for that, but I think it is mnbenefits.gov, and we can check that later. But that's where you can apply for housing assistance, where you can apply for food assistance, and just all sorts of different things. Definitely just check it out and see what applications are available there if you do need help. So, but for finding a job, obviously it's best if you can get back on your feet, and if you can kind of get away from that governmental assistance and find a job and reintegrate with, you know, everybody in society. Which, who's to say that you're not integrated with everyone in society, but just kind of regaining a normal living model that is not dependent upon government assistance. I think that's everyone's preference, tax money and things like that. We want everyone to be independent and autonomous in living. So if you don't feel like you can get a job, you just have to Google it. Just find it on a web browser. Look for job positions open and available for those who have committed a felony, and it pops up right away. And I was helping someone in the cities, and it was just like a list, and it was like a never-ending list, and I saw it, and I was just like, I kind of wouldn't mind doing most of these jobs. So it was pretty cool. So you are not out of luck just because you have a felony. Of course, that was in the Twin Cities, and I'm not sure about the landscape up here, but there is hope, and if you have the flexibility to move or commute, you can find some options too. So, also criminal records can be expunged. So if you have a felony from a long time ago, that can be stricken from your record. I think it's like 5 years after. So you do have an option there. There are caveats and nuances to that process as well, and I could help you with that too. We can look into that if you are interested in figuring that out. But I think we're wrapping up the presentation today. I think it's going longer than I expected, and I do apologize. There are professionals here to help you succeed. We want to make sure that you are happy and comfortable and safe and getting, living the life that you want. So, are there any questions? No. All right, then please do help yourself to some of the water, some of the popcorn in the back. Also, look around. We've got some art on the side. On the left here, we've got opportunities to do some art and participate in the conversation up on this table up here. So please do. Thank you for coming. And if you do have any other questions, please let me know. I am here to help you, and I would love to help you find a house today. So, thanks so much.